let's queer up religion. Pope Francis criticizes U.S. conservatives over same-sex blessings. Pope Francis criticized U.S. religious conservatives and evangelicals opposing his decision to allow priests to bless same-sex couples during a recent 60 Minutes interview. The 87-year-old Catholic leader described such conservatives as those who, quote, cling to something and do not want to see beyond that, end quote, calling it a suicidal attitude. He emphasized the need to consider tradition while remaining open-minded. The Pope called homosexuality a human fact and reiterated his December 2023 directive permitting blessings for same-sex couples, though not equating it with church approval of same-sex marriage. This move has faced backlash, especially from African bishops who deem it culturally inappropriate and potentially confusing. Pope Francis dismissed these criticisms as coming from small ideological groups and urged clerics to empathize with the suffering of people. In November 2023, Pope Francis dismissed Texas Bishop Joseph Strickland, a vocal critic accusing him of undermining the Catholic faith. Despite the controversy, the Pope remains steadfast, acknowledging that solitude is a price he has to pay for his decisions. He also lamented the lack of brotherly discussion among detractors. Pope Francis has consistently urged the Church to avoid divisive issues like homosexuality while advocating for tolerance and supporting same-sex unions and celibate gay priests. This LGBTQ plus empathizing 60 Minutes interview with Pope Francis is aired against the backdrop of the recent UMC General Conference, where LGBTQ plus supportive decisions were taken. Queer News Tonight considers if we can expect the church to be more liberal in the future. I feel like we touch upon religion every now and then at this table. As much as I grew up in a Catholic Christian sort of mesh of whatever my grandma kind of said it was, I was loved by that form of religion. Now religion scares me a little bit. But I think the Pope is great in his attributions and what he wants for the LGBTQ plus community. I don't think it's going to change the church still, unfortunately. The heavy duty, Italian-based Roman Catholic church is hard. So tough.
I just always enjoy reading translations of what he says, because he's always a very frank individual. I would love if in America people called conservatism suicidal, and dismissing it as this itty-bitty group. I'm like, so like if you're at home and you're like, how do I deal with like my Catholic family? Like, oh, well, the Pope says being conservative is suicidal. He says, oh, you're just an itty-bitty group anyway. Like, that's awesome. I hope we do that more.
That's pretty radical. Got so many of those itty-bitty groups against him that it's too many itty-bitty groups,
I mean, the reality for the Pope and for many organized religions is religion is on the decline.
Right.
So
In general, very much so.
The more that you eliminate people that can be part of the church, that's suicidal for the future of the church. I think the study came out, I read a story about that the fastest growing voting group here in the United States are non-believers. So if that tells you anything about what and I applaud, and I also will do a small plug. The St. John's on the Lake is returning as our presenting sponsor again this year for the Task Force Gala, part of the United Methodist Church, who is a welcoming church. And we sit here at the Sunshine Cathedral, which is another welcoming church.
One of the best.
So I think we have to look towards religion for places where people can find home and fellowship and comfort in places that actually respect you. And
agreed.
Well said. As a raised very deeply Catholic, I'm no longer Catholic and I'm no longer religious, but I was very deeply Catholic. I want to find that optimism. Yeah. That is, it also was a space for me in other moments of my life that was not necessarily for me religious, but where community and fellowship and it's something that there's no kind of atheists in foxholes when I'm like when I'm on a plane and suddenly like it's kind of like there's a lot of turbulence. I find myself doing the sign of the cross. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And that is I too would like to see people who can find a home in the Catholic Church. And Pope Francis is really is doing incredible work. That is like
sassy. I love
it. It's radical. What he's doing is radical.
It is.
Nothing short of radical.
It is.
And it needs to be said.
And it needs to just keep happening.